Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /malicious compliance, where people follow exact orders to spite someone. And in today's episode, it's all about bad bosses. Again, guys, Karen bosses are losing their jobs when they mess with the wrong employee. Guys, I hope you enjoy the satisfying stories today. Hit subscribe if you're not subscribed. And as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. This happened years ago, and I had a good laugh the other day thinking about it. I work for an embroidery company that embroiders logos onto uniform shirts. There's this one particular shirt that we get all the time that has a diagonal closure, so the left side of the chest is essentially covered by a huge flap coming from the right side, if you can picture that. Now, there's such little room on the left side that any logo bigger than an inch looks like it's going into the person's armpit. So after a few complaints, we made it policy to only allow that shirt to put logos on the right side. With that said, a big company we work with likes to make massive orders with generalized embroidery placement. For example, they would get 10 different types of garments all embroidered with a logo on the left chest. Whenever I would see this particular shirt was in the mix, I would reach out to them to let them know that we need to switch the logo to the right side. One difficult manager from that company reaches out to their client with my suggestion, and they got an earful because the client insisted that their logo could only be placed on the left due to company policy. Now, instead of smoothing it over with her client, this rep took it out on me. She sends me a very aggressive email stating that we're perfectly capable of embroidering the shirt on the left side because we had done it in the past, and to stop blowing up her inbox with our useless suggestions for a better location. She made it very clear from her aggressive email that from now on, whatever embroidery location the order requested is final. So with that, I saved the company email, and I got my boss's blessing to immediately stop all quality control emails for this company, per manager. One day, a huge order comes in, all diagonal closure shirts, all left side embroidery. I maliciously complied, and I sent the order on its way with no hassle to the manager. A week later, an executive from that company calls me horrified. He sent me photos of the client shirts, all with the logos in the armpits. He said that they were having to refund the client over $10,000 and that the client was pissed, never wanting to order shirts from them again. And why did we not tell them that this was a bad location for the embroidery? I didn't say a word. I simply forwarded the email the manager sent me, telling me verbatim that I was to no longer waste the company's time making useless suggestions for those shirts. It was confirmed that they had to do a big fat refund in the end, and I did not see a reorder, so I suspect the client dismissed them as a vendor. It was a huge client they lost. Think high-class hotel. And as far as the manager goes, she was fired. They sent us a very polite, groveling email introducing a new manager and requesting that we resume our quality control, emphasizing that we know best. Well, ain't that something, guys? It only took them messing up a huge order and losing a massive client to realize an embroidery company knows best when it comes to the placement of logos on specific shirts. Who would have thought, right? I just love how OP saved that email knowing exactly what was gonna happen. And honestly, if only Karen was a bit nicer in the email and got off her high horse, she might still be employed. Okay, so to begin, I used to be in charge of the printer room in a rather large company. We shipped a crap ton of product every day, and everything shipped had to have the accompanying printed label/documents. Nothing can be loaded onto the trucks without this paperwork. Now, this was in the olden days of the 90s, so we had 7 massive, 4-foot-tall dot matrix printers that did all the work. Now, these printers were temperamental bastards. If the paper jammed, the printer did not automatically stop printing. It would just keep pushing and jamming more and more paper into the machine, and if left unattended, it would break down. With that said, running the printer room was a 2-person's job. When I started, I trained for 2 full weeks with the 2 current printer room employees. One was being promoted, and I was replacing him. And let me tell you, it was a rough 2 weeks. Getting the hang of the job and the various things you had to learn to do, etc. One thing that made it even more complicated was the fact that each printer had its own personality with its own problems. Another was the fact that a problem in one printer could have a different fix than the exact same problem in another. The job would be quiet for 45 minutes straight, during which we did routine maintenance and such, but it was really slow and quiet and restful. It was because the company processed its shipping orders in batches once an hour. And then, oh boy, on the hour, every hour, the batch of orders would go through, and thousands of orders would come spitting out. Now, if you were on top of things and you kept everything running smoothly, the orders would print out very neatly and quickly. But if you didn't know what you were doing, and if you didn't maintain things just right, you would get a backup and things would go to hell very fast. When one machine went down, you had to fix it fast before the next one jammed, because guaranteed, those machines would jam up multiple times on every batch print job. So I've been working the print room for several months, and things were great. And then my coworker gives his 2-week notice. We tried to train a replacement, but he was incredibly lazy. The guy got fired a few days after the end of his training, which left me in the printer room alone. And this is when the bosses informed me that my position's being phased out, and I'm going to be replaced by 2 employees transferred from a different department. So not only am I losing my job, I have to train my replacements. And I desperately needed a good recommendation from this company, so I couldn't just quit or half-ass it. I quickly learned that both of these transfers are lazy and useless. They had been with the company for decades, they had friends in the head office, and they knew their jobs were safe. I'd show them how to do something, and they would flat out laugh and say, "Yeah, I'm not doing that." Every day, I'd be trying to train them, and they would ignore me. They would chat with each other or leave to go sit in the cafeteria, leaving me to do a 2-person job alone. Luckily, I was good enough to handle the workload, but it was annoying. Mindful of the fact that I need a reference of this company, I kept extensive notes on each day's progress. I clearly documented every single instance of the replacements refusing to learn, and not even listening to my instructions. I also followed up daily with my direct supervisor, and he knew what was going on. My notes went into the company files, and they were passed up the line. Despite my scathing reports, the head office did absolutely nothing. So fast forward to my last day. This is the day the training process is signed for letting the newbies work alone. No help or no supervision allowed, to see how well they handle the job and the pressure. I was in writing, forbidden to help them or to answer any questions. And as I suspected, things fell to crap pretty much immediately, minutes into the first batch of orders. One of the biggest printers had jammed, and the clueless idiots had no idea how to fix the printer jam, because they ignored me every single time I tried to show them. So they turned to me and demand I fix things. I'm just sitting on a desk, coffee in one hand, an apple in the other, and I just smile and say, "Yeah, I am not doing that." So now, one of them's yelling at me, while the other's basically thumping uselessly on the printer, like a gorilla that just found a candy machine. And that's when the second printer jams. The paper starts spilling out of the back of the first printer, which, if you knew the job, was a really bad warning sign. And this is when I say, well, I'm just gonna go to the cafeteria. Good luck. As I'm leaving, I hear a third printer crunch and jam up. I went to my supervisor and I let him know what's happening. He said he not only expected as much, he had predicted so repeatedly to his superiors. He once again specifically forbade me from offering any help. So I went to the cafeteria and I read my book for an hour. And then my supervisor comes to let me know what happened. The entire printer room is down. Every single printer has either jammed up or is actually broken. The company's losing thousands of dollars every single minute. And this is when one of the shipping/receiving supervisors finds me, all in a panic, begging me to get the orders printed. I tell him I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to do that. At this point, several people are running around outside the cafeteria, all in a panic, running from place to place to figure out why they don't have shipping orders. The chaos took hours to resolve, and I wasn't allowed to fix the problems. Anytime somebody started giving me a hard time, my supervisor would intervene and show them the memo from the bosses, stating that I was forbidden to help in the printer room that day. I spent my entire last day at work drinking coffee, chatting with coworkers, and reading my book. The whole fiasco ends up costing the company tens of thousands of dollars. Yeah, why am I not surprised everything went to crap, guys? Like, it completely boggles my mind why bosses always get rid of the best person for the job and everything goes wrong after that. And seriously, Opie telling them, yeah, I'm not gonna do that, was truly the chef's kiss in all of this. Like, throwing it back in their faces during a pure moment of panic was absolutely amazing. Like, that cup of coffee he was sipping on probably tasted delicious that day. And this person shares their little printer situation story, and they say, I used to work in the photo lab of a very prevalent retail pharmacy. You know the one. I was good, fast, efficient, and I always provided the most excellent customer service. Customers loved me. I adapted official procedures to make them better and improve the final product. I also fixed the photo printers. Now, if you've worked in a 1-hour photo lab, you know that no one fixes those things. They jam constantly, they overheat, and they never get replaced or updated. They break at least weekly, if not more. The same thing with those kiosks and receipt printers and the point of sale system. It's a nightmare. I haven't worked there since 2017, and they finally updated the pin pads 6 years later. With that said, because the printers would break so often, and I had experience fixing printers from an old job, I would just whip out a screwdriver, open them up, and fix them myself. It was faster and easier than putting in a ticket. And that meant I could keep churning out orders during peak, instead of being 1 to 2 printers down at all times. Now, shortly before the holidays, we got a new assistant manager. The guy had previously managed another store, but he stepped into a less stressful position due to a heart issue. The guy was a prick, and he created stress for himself. He treated team members like garbage, and most people were too afraid to stand up to him. I had a good relationship with our GM, so I wasn't afraid of this guy, and he would often single me out because of it. At one point during Christmas rush, he caught me with my metaphorical pants down. I had a screwdriver in hand, and I was disassembling a printer that suddenly stopped working. The guy chewed me out and told me to stop fixing the printer immediately and to just put in a ticket. And if he ever caught me fixing a printer again, he would have to take disciplinary action. So cue the malicious compliance. I just stopped fixing the printers and I put in tickets. In about a day, we were down to one functioning printer that was overworked to hell and back. That printer almost caught fire when I was off shift because nobody was able to unjam it. He never told me to stop fixing printers again, and he left me alone the entire rest of the time I worked there. He ends up getting fired several months later for customer complaints. So a long time ago, I was working in a cafe/sandwich shop. It was a 24/7 shop in a prime location. The place was located in an area with a lot of university students and a very active nightlife. When I started, the shop was one of 4 of a small chain. Gary, the owner/manager, had bought the rights from the original shop. Gary was also doing quality control for the shop because at that point, every shop had separate vendors. Fast forward 2 years, the original owners decide to incorporate because they have a lot of offers for franchising, and a couple of problems with quality control have appeared. So they bought back all the shops and instituted a more centralized approach to vendors. Now this was good for Gary because he was the owner of the building, so he basically became a salaried manager and he got extra income from the rent. Initially, nothing changed. We were still number 2 in sales and the product was good. And then Dick enters the picture. Dick was the new regional manager as the small chain had become big enough to reach national level. He was the person responsible for quality control. He was considered something of a golden boy, having a business degree and helping with the expansion, but the problem came from his ego. You see, Dick had done this 10-hour cooking workshop one weekend, and he considered himself something of a chef. The guy's first major change was installing a crepe station. Not restaurant quality crepes, but crepes on the go, folded like a triangle. This is important for later. It was a pain to learn at the beginning, but it quickly became one of our best sellers. We usually went through 10 liters of crepe mixture on a slow day. Now, having success with his first change, Dick decides to apply his chef training and implement some new things. At that point in time, Mexican cuisine was becoming popular in my country, due to mostly cooking shows. So Dick decides to ride the trend and he starts putting Mexican options on the menu. In reality, that meant 2 more set sandwiches and crepes, and a few more customization options for sandwiches and crepes, and here begins the problem. As I've said, Mexican cuisine was quite the new thing. Our country's cuisine is quite different than Mexican, especially on the spice level. A lot of produce used for Mexican food was either rare or non-existent, but Dick was adamant that it was another win for him, so he finds a vendor, and this is when the quality starts to fail. We started to receive buckets of pre-made chili, jars of pickled jalapenos, and pre-made guacamole and tubs of liquid cheese, queso. We also got tons of blocks of white cheese labeled queso blanco. The queso that came in a tub was an orange paste with some red bits in it, and under a bad light, it could pass for bad queso. It also left a very plastic taste in my mouth. It reminded me of clay. That was one taste that kept me away from Mexican food for a while. And the jalapenos weren't jalapenos. They were pickled Thai green chilies labeled as jalapenos, meaning they were way hotter than expected. I never tasted the rest, but some adventurous customers that tried them weren't impressed. The only new thing that kind of sold was the plate of nachos. Basically, because it was Doritos covered in disgusting orange liquid cheese with a lot of bacon and a lot of sausage. We complained about the quality to Gary, but he couldn't do anything anymore, and Dick didn't back down. Dick was upset from the low sales, and he blames us, saying, "You're not pushing them enough." But he sticks to his guns, and he brings corporate to the shop. One day, Dick comes in with 4 people from headquarters. 2 of them are the owners. They sit down, and Dick comes over and he places an order of 5 quesadillas. I ask how he wants them. He tells me exactly as it says on the board, and prepared exactly as I told you. I just replied, "Okay, sir, I'll call you when they're ready." Now, Dick, in all of his chefy wisdom, has given us very specific instructions for the quesadillas. First, to get this out of the way, it wasn't a proper quesadilla. It was a crepe. And the instructions were to reheat the chili, start the crepe, then place 1.5 ladles of reheated queso, add 1 ladle of the chili, add 1 tablespoon of chopped jalapenos, 1 tablespoon of queso blanco, half a tablespoon of guacamole, and fold. Doing that, we produced a liquid mess, which tried really hard to escape from that thin crepe. Cue the malicious compliance. Me and the other girl working make 5 quesadillas exactly as instructed. I then take the order to the table and waited for the results. 5 people, all wearing white shirts and suits, bite into the quesadillas, and the quesadillas almost simultaneously explode, raining melted cheese and red chili on them. Some of them have bitten into a jalapeno and the heat's hitting them hard. A few choice words were heard. We brought them 2 bottles of water for the heat and 2 packs of napkins to clean what they could. And let's just say, the new menu wasn't a blast with headquarters. After they left, Dick came back and the guy was beyond angry. He approached the counter, bypassing the line, and he made a huge scene. The following dialogue is a bit censored. He comes up to me screaming, "You stupid bitch, you made me look bad because you don't like Mexican food. You can't even follow basic instructions. You embarrassed me and the cleaning of this mess will be deducted from your pay." He also said some more offensive stuff, and I was standing there dumbfounded, along with a long line of customers hearing his outburst, and that's when Gary intervenes and says, "Shut up." Dick looks at him and replies, "What the F did you say?" Gary tells him, "Shut up. The girls followed your instructions. Don't try to blame them for your mistake, or make them pay for your stupid dry cleaning." Dick says, "I can do what I want. I'm the regional manager, and when I'm finished with them, maybe I'll find another manager for the shop." Gary tells him, "I would love to see you try." Dick says, "Oh, I will," as he stormed out. Immediately, Gary calls headquarters and notified them about what happened. He also gave an ultimatum. If something happened to his staff, the company would need to find a new location. 3 days later, we were notified that Dick was fired. The outburst was the main reason, and the other was one of the owners had a really bad reaction to the jalapenos. A week later, the Mexican menu was removed. During that part, they found out that Dick had used the cheapest vendor for the new menu. The vendor had a reputation for shady practices, which partly explained the weird products. I stayed there until I finished university and got a job in my field. The Mexican menu made a huge comeback 2 years before I left. This time, headquarters hires a proper chef to consult and find the vendors. Now the ingredients are as authentic as possible, and pico and guac are made daily in-house. Okay, first of all, the product that OP's regional manager was bringing in just sounded super unappetizing. No wonder it failed. Like getting OP to push pasty liquid cheese spread on a crepe with chilies. Yeah, that's a hard pass. Second, if you're a boss and you yell at employees in front of people, you are a piece of crap and you deserve a shoe to the face. I'm glad that guy got canned. Also, I'm happy to hear they brought back the Mexican menu and it ended up doing well because authentic Mexican food is frickin' delicious. A few years ago, I worked at a janky 2-bit company. The boss thought he was Billy Big Bollocks and God's gift simultaneously. The guy had a big head, and I'm surprised he could get through doorways. He also used to drink beer at his desk for lunch, and he would often arrive at work late. He was also an insufferable muscle bro, and the guy walked around as if carrying rolls of carpet under each arm. A few months into my time there, the company starts winning large orders, so he asked me to set up a small-scale production line to increase capacity, and tells me the new hire will be situated there. So I design it, set it up, test it all works, and I'm feeling a sense of pride with what I accomplished. It worked like a dream. I was confident it would work really, really well for the new hire. Now, because I'm an engineer by trade, everything was perfect, and only I knew how to fix the broken stuff. Nobody else asked how it worked before making some very detrimental decisions. A little while later, there was an issue. My boss couldn't hire anyone willing to accept such a crappy wage and boring work. So that's when my boss had the bright idea to demote me and make me run my creation. I thought, no way, not for like $10,000 less. I immediately start job hunting, and I told him if that's your final offer, regard tomorrow as my final day. He then panics that he's committed the company to $1 million order due for shipping in 3 days' time. During his alcohol-fueled panic, he tells me to write up highly detailed technical manuals and processes for my replacement. I tell him I can't do that in 1 day. He told me to try. The guy also didn't specify what they should contain, and considering I had no help from him with this project and he just complains, I thought, F it. I gave him his manuals. I created Word documents with convincing titles like Technical Manual Product Version 2.0 and how to do this precise task. Inside the documents were, for example, the surprised Pikachu face and Bubbles from the Trailer Park Boys looking lost. Then below, just one line of text reading, this manual contains all the information I could find, or was given. The file sizes would also indicate a lot of text was contained within, thanks to the images. Therefore, at face value, they looked legitimate. I saved them to my laptop in an equally legitimate-looking folder that afternoon. Early the next morning, I came to work to collect my belongings and do some handovers, and found the laptop had vanished. I said goodbye to all of my colleagues, and then looked over to see my boss looking pissed with a beer in one hand. The guy was so angry he didn't look up from his desk. A friend told me later that the company missed the production deadline, despite him working 12-hour days to try to catch up. Apparently, the client was extremely pissed off and dropped them. Don't screw over good people. See, this is the golden rule the boss man forgot, and this is the karma he gets. Like, the guy demotes the person who created the process, which allows more output, thus probably generating more income. Like, how did he think this was gonna go? Did he really think OP was gonna be like, oh yeah, you know what, that sounds like a great plan, boss. Let me go ahead and take this demotion that also cuts my pay by a lot. That sounds like a great plan. Bosses like this suck. Just stop being cheap and pay people. Like, take care and look after your team, and they'll look after you instead of doing stuff like this and costing you $1 million contract. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /malicious compliance. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed yesterday's episode on the channel, it's on our /entitled people episode, where a psycho Karen decides to destroy OP's car, but she makes the biggest mistake of her life. Guys, go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.